The great philosopher Rocky Balboa says time beats us all, and here's a list of 10 artists that should have perhaps retired years ago. Welcome classic rock fans to part 2 of bands that should retire. The first video did so well, I figured I've got to do another one, but this one's different. This one's artists as voted for by you. There's a bit of a caveat with the first video, and that is it's not so much about age. I don't care how old somebody is, but it's got everything to do with authenticity and their ability to perform. If you're miming and playing to backing tracks, should you really still be going out there? Anyway, enough of this shenanigans. Let's get on with the list, shall we? Number 10, many of you have voted for Pt.2. I'm not sure I agree with this. A lot of you were very mean to Bono. I mean, who doesn't love Bono? That wonderful single he did with Cher was just absolutely splendid. But I must admit, this band have certainly lost their edge recently. There's almost a joke there. The intensity and relevance they had in the 80s has long since dissipated, really. Now we're left with the U2, the Vegas years. I must admit, Achtung Baby was a fine album. And I rather like the record All You Can Leave Behind. But personally, I don't think this bunch of Irish scallywags should retire, because all the people I've spoken to have seen them live, even fairly recently, have said they're still absolutely fantastic. So, not sure I agree with you on this one. And number 9 is Kansas, and this band is symptomatic of how the paradigms of this list have shifted slightly since the last one. That is, a lot of you are listing bands that you think somehow don't bear any resemblance to the original band anymore. In fact, the version that goes out now is kind of sullying the reputation. And many of you have listed Kansas. I mean, I get it. I mean, we all miss Steve Walsh. I mean, Steve Walsh was one of the finest singers ever, in my opinion. Although he wasn't singing that well towards the end, to be honest with you. And I also have a problem with this one on this list, because this band still have 2 founding members, and I rather enjoyed their last 2 albums. So I'm inclined to go against you on this one and say, carry on, my wayward sons. Number 8 is Roger Waters. I'm kind of in agreement with you here, to be honest with you. A huge Pink Floyd fan, as you know. I saw Waters on the Us and Them tour, and it was a fantastic show. Really loved it. However, recent footage has come to light of him miming to a lot of these songs. And, well, I know he mimes to Have a Cigar when he does it live, of course. And I'm sort of thinking, if you cannot sing Have a Cigar, that you have to mime it, why put it in the set list at all? Of course, it was Roy Harper that sung the vocals on the original. But of course, Roger could always rework these songs. He could always rework these albums. I mean, we all loved Dark Side and Redux, didn't we? So maybe with Roger Waters, it's time to call it a day, so to speak. He has become kind of the slapped arse of classic rock, hasn't he? My attitude is, if you can't sing anymore, if you can't sing live anymore, then don't sing live. Some of you might point to a glaring irony that I'm actually wearing a Neil Young t-shirt, and perhaps Neil Young should hang up his boots. But why should he? He's still going out on stage and sounding as bad as he's ever done, and doing it live. Number 7 is Styx. Many of you have voted for this iconic American band. I think reading between the lines, I think what a lot of you are saying, not so much that you want this band to retire, but you just want Dennis DeYoung back in the fold. I mean, this band still has James Young and Tommy Shaw, and I think Chuck still joins them on stage. So there was enough of that classic band there to give them that air of authenticity, I think. Tommy Shaw joined them during the Crystal Ball album, I think it was. And I have to say that I think their last album was absolutely excellent. So I don't really call on this band to retire at all. But like you, I do wish we'd get one more tour with Dennis DeYoung. Number 6 is Paul McCartney. No, I love the Beatles and I love McCartney, but his voice is shot. There's no getting away from that. I mean, he is an 80-year-old man, and his voice is just showing signs of age and wear and tear. But I have to wonder if it is really time for him to retire and go back to his farm and live off his vegan sausages. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's fantastic for his age. Some might say an advocate for vegetarianism. I would say it's more of an advocate for being a multi-millionaire, quite frankly. And when he performs live, he doesn't rearrange his songs, he sings them in the original key, which I think warrants some respect, really wanting to present the material as close to the original as possible. But there's no doubt, I mean, listening to the live footage recently, he's really struggling with some of these songs. I mean, maybe I'm amazed, it just sounds like bad karaoke these days. I saw him in 2003 and he was absolutely remarkable. I'd love to hear from any of you guys that have seen him recently. And what do you think of the performance? Whether you think he should call it a day. But as much as I love this guy and I love the Beatles, I love his writing and his contribution to music, maybe he's come to the end of that long and winding road. Number 5 is Status Quo. This is one that I'm inclined to agree with you on. This is one of those bands that fits into the kind of sullied brand category. Now, Francis Rossi is still as sharp as a tack. Saw him recently on his Tunes and Chat show and it was absolutely wonderful. Loved it. But it's just the Status Quo as a kind of a diluted brand, really. I think most of us feel that they should have hung up their boots when Rick Parfitt died. Many of you are arguing even before Rick Parfitt died that Status Quo wasn't really Status Quo anymore. Although in all fairness to them, I listened to the album Backbone and rather enjoyed it. I thought the track Liberty Lane was a real toe tapper. And as much as I'd like Francis Rossi to continue entertaining us and singing these wonderful songs, I think the brand that is Status Quo really should only be spoken about in the past tense now. Number 4 is Deep Purple. Many of you feel it's time for Deep Purple to call it a day, but I think the band are kind of on the same page as you guys, because I think they've acknowledged that this is the end. They're just working towards the end now. I mean, there's no doubt the band lacks the power and energy I think they used to have, and Gillan's voice, as he must be nearly 80 now, his voice is nowhere near what it was in the 70s or even 80s for that matter. But saying that, I mean, I saw Purple with Blackmore many years ago, the Mark II lineup. But this band were given a new leash of life when Steve Morse joined and produced some fantastic albums. Perpendicular, Whoosh, Now What, another great album. Less said about Bananas, the better though. Maybe we should take a chill pill here and just enjoy this wonderful live music performed by these fantastic musicians. Okay, they don't have the energy and the power that they used to have, but neither does the audience. The audience are hardly pogoing around to Bloodsucker, are they? So maybe we should doff our caps to them and say job well done. Number 3 is a guy that I think should definitely not be on the stage anymore, and that's Frankie Valli. This guy's almost 90 years old and he looks very frail, very cadaverous on the stage. He's shuffling around and miming to the songs. I find that really embarrassing, quite frankly. I don't think grease is the word. I think retirement should be the word here. I mean, who doesn't love those songs? Who doesn't love the songs of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons? If you want to gawk at museum pieces and feel good about ourselves by snapping that self-affirming I was there selfie, then why not knock yourself out? Number 2 is Bon Jovi. Many of you have voted for Bon Jovi as a band that should really call it a day. Bon Jovi were the first band I ever saw live in 1984, believe it or not, with Richie Sambora on guitar. It was fantastic. And with Richie returning to the fold, there has been a certain buzz around this band at the moment. But I think we're ignoring the elephant in the room, and that is Bon Jovi's voice. There have been numerous accounts. I think he's even caught out on camera singing to backing tracks and recorded vocals. And let's be honest with ourselves, when the voice goes, it's a serious hindrance to a singer, serious hindrance to the band. And what do? Do you start tuning everything down a step? Or maybe in the case of Jethro Tull, tuning it down several steps, so it's almost slipping through the floorboards. Or like McCartney, you could insist that it's sung in the original key, so a lot of the songs just sound like a strangulated bark. It's very sad when you get a lot of singers who are reaching for notes on the top shelf that just aren't there anymore. I would have liked to have included some video footage of this band performing live, or even some audio. But you can only include about 4 seconds. More than that, you end up with a copyright strike or a claim against your video. But what I will do, so we can reminisce over the glory days, is include a still from my favourite Bon Jovi video, so you can guess which song it is. Number 1 is Yes. Many of you are calling for this band to retire, calling it a tribute band. To be honest with you, I think they should have really hung up their boots when Chris Squire died. I know Chris Squire said that he'd like them to continue, but nevertheless, I think it's time, to be honest with you. I mean, they're brilliant musicians, they're still playing brilliantly, there's no doubt about that. I think a lot of classic Yes fans can't forgive Steve Howe, whilst John Anderson is in good health, to bring him back into the fold, to give that band an air of greater authenticity, I think. And Rick Wakeman, it'd be lovely if Rick Wakeman joined them. However, if you read Steve Howe's autobiography, there doesn't seem to be any love lost between Steve Howe and Rick Wakeman. I think we can assume they're not on each other's Christmas card list. My feeling is I would have preferred Steve Howe to go out in the same way that Steve Hackett does, honouring that Genesis catalogue. Steve Howe plays the music of Yes. I feel that you may own the rights to a name, but it doesn't mean it's always right to use it. Anyway, if you have made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video. I'll put the card up there to the original Bands That Should Retire, so you can check that out as well. If you're new to this channel, please do click like, subscribe, check that notification bell, it's so important for the YouTube algorithm, and share this video if you know anyone who might enjoy it. Other than that, hope you are well, staying safe, and of course that you keep listening.